podcast listeners, if you hear my voice right now, I need you to do something for me. I want you to take out your phone or on your computer, go to Apple Podcasts, search for Ask Your Oldhead podcast. You'll see my logo, my little picture, my little image there. Find the show. Please rate and write a review. It's a small thing, but it helps others find this work and find what I'm doing here. And it really, really matters, as small as that may seem. So if you could please do that before we get into the show, I would much appreciate it. Thank you for listening. Let's get into it. Peace. Peace. I'm Majestic.
My brother, Justice Rajee.
Man, so here we are, and a lot has happened this week since the last time we spoke. It just, well, I'll save it for the editing process, but so I guess where I'll start, and I think is Trugoy, Dave Jolicoeur.
Yeah,
I want to say plug 2 of De La Soul passed away at age 54. A lot of folks broke up, and I guess that's in light of even our recent good friends passing, and in that age, it's still hard. I mean, it's their age range, right, for Black men, where it's not unfounded, right, for someone to pass from, I think it may have been like a heart related, circumstances. I don't know, but I know he had been public about health concerns of that nature at some point. But not all that was staying. I don't want to do a whole thing on Black men's health at the moment. I like De La Soul. I love De La Soul. I'm a big De La Soul fan. I've been on the record in our conversations about how much I think hip hop is actually shaped by the power of great groups. And at least for me, how important great groups were to like the music that I think is sort of at the center of these living records. It's hard to know how to totally feel, because on one hand, I still will be able to listen to the music, but it does, it was on my list of like, could I get another shot to catch De La live? You know what I'm saying? And I'm sure that the rest of Mace and Pasta Deuce will find a pathway to continue, being performers and performing as De La, probably with other artists, adding on to fill for where Dave would be. But it's just sad, you know what I'm saying? It's tough to lose some of these artists from our time, right? You know what I'm saying? And some of those guys that are not that much older than us. So, when we was 1988, 89, 90, listening to them records, they're like, oh, that's just like some dudes that's a little older than us making music. You know what I'm saying? They are our older peers. You know what I'm saying? So yeah, I guess I didn't have a super question. I probably have a better one in a minute. But what was your first thoughts when you heard, when you got word that the brother passed?
So I think, my first thought was, to be honest, about the health thing, right? And put it in context of our good friend and brother who recently returned to the Essence. It was kind of like my first thought was, damn, like, here we go again, right?
Mm-hmm.
I feel like the trauma of when Black men are dying because of health issues is like a prolonged harm. Mm. Whereas you get like the intra-community violence issue and, you see it and you go, oh man, put the guns down, right? Cool. Or you start to evaluate all the reasons, but then someone dies because of congenital heart failure or a heart attack or, all these things. And you just start to think about like, okay, this person was a classic artist and you're thinking about this person, but at the same time, they are being harmed by the exact same things as every other Black man, and just thinking about the culture of, when you think about artists from that golden era, right? And I would argue that De La Soul um, were at the end, right, kind of like the golden era
Mm-hmm.
of what we would call hip hop. Like, you think about them just being able to do the shows on cruises, and perform in Poland and perform at different festivals, and it'll be fine. And you don't think about that, like, health concerns and health challenges are impacting them just like this impacting all of us, right? And so that was my first thought. And my second thought was I went to think about a bit of De La's influence. If you were to look at a family tree, arguably, I mean, I kind of put the Jungle Brothers at the root of the family tree, but I put De La right behind them, or right, like, kind of next to them. A lot of the personalities in hip hop that everyone likes today are outgrowths of what De La did,
Mm-hmm.
of their ability to be themselves and actually present that there were multiple expressions of blackness. Things we take for granted now, right? But you couldn't take for granted in 1988 when somebody was wearing a paisley shirt or wearing like locks coming out of the side of his head or something, right?
Mm-hmm.
When, the perception, not only of white folks, but of black folks, but there was only generally one kind of blackness.
Right. Mm-hmm.
And the power of them just being themselves. And that's also in the resulting albums, because as much as we think about 3 Feet High and Rising, to me, De La Soul is Dead was actually as important, if not more important.
Yeah.
Because they like killed off an idea and just did good music, right? Like, you had an idea, they killed an idea, and then just went on and became their own art. They became who they were. So if you look at a lot of these artists, you look at your Kendricks, you look at your Kanye's, you look at all these people who you're like, oh man, that has some relationship to what De La Soul was able to do.
Yeah.
Right? Like, and so the third thing I'll share kind of tied into the second part, and obviously it was a big deal when they were going to start streaming and everything, because I can't listen to Roller Skating Jam called Saturdays because it wasn't on the streaming, right? I got to go to YouTube all the time, which has always been a challenge. And I want to hear Biddies in the BK Lounge and all them other songs, but it also, I started thinking about the role of the Black suburb.
Mm-hmm.
And how, in many ways, when we talk about the Black suburb, it's usually framed now in a context of like Black folks leaving a city, and depending on what cities you're from, it's a relatively new phenomenon. But if you look at places like New York City, it's not a new phenomenon, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like, Black folks, first of all, have been in Long Island for hundreds of years, so we should get that out the way. But even in the most current context, there were Black communities in many of your favorite rap artists, including Public Enemy, including Eric B. and Rakim, including EPMD, and De La Soul, were all from Long Island.
Yep.
So they were all from a Black suburban context. Now, clearly, a Black suburban context here doesn't mean necessarily there was nothing not going on.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Because that ain't the case either. But there was a Black suburban context, and I think they were able to embody some of that. And I think all those groups I just named embodying different forms of being from Long Island, particularly Hempstead, Amityville, etc. Freeport, really kind of showed again this different form of like, everyone doesn't live in the projects.
Right.
You know what I mean? Everyone doesn't have the Melly Mel experience. You have you're Black, so it's kind of lit. It's kind of dangerous. It's kind of dangerous out here. but it's lit. But like everyone doesn't have the same experience, and I think as they evolved and then just did hip hop and didn't even play into all of that, I just take the power of their music expanding who they were and being open and just authentic with who they were to the world. And it is unfortunate they won't be able to, as a collective, and they, Trugoy won't be able to see the impact of when their music hits the streaming things, and then they have even more experiences. So, just reflective on that.
Yeah, and I think it's interesting is the like the idea, like when even I first heard 3 feet high rising, because you got listening to, at least for me, I'm saying, listening to Eric B and Rakim, listening to EPMD, listening to Run DMC. I wasn't listening to a Run DMC because, like, I just think the timing of my own age of like really starting to pick music, once I got past 1986, past like 10, 11 years old. Because before then, like I knew Run DMC, but I wasn't trying to go to the whatever, the Tougher Than Leather tour. I was like 9 years old or whatever, 8 years old. Like I didn't have any context to connect with it the way someone that's sometimes folks are maybe 4 or 5 years older than us feel about Run DMC. I knew who they were, but like again, Airbnb, Rakim, EPMD, then Dayline Tribe, and then like even Jungle Brothers. It was almost like I knew who Jungle Brothers were, and it's like Jungle Brothers. Them is them. That, that's the day. That's like together over there, like the Day of Tongues, like But what I was getting to was like I know the things they're talking about in these songs, right? They're human things. They're not necessarily. I don't think only, just to keep that lens in terms of like social economic stratification. I don't think only working class to lower to middle class families have problems with like or challenges around, liking a girl and you find out the girl you like maybe she likes to do things you ain't ready for just yet. Like, that's a, if you ever heard the song Jenny, if you didn't heard 3 Feet High and Rising, you know what I'm talking about. Right, like the sentiments that were going on in there were things that were familiar, like like stuff you talk about walking home from school and things that go on at the basketball court, in terms of jokes and talking about people and somebody's smelling at school and I mean, the outfits of the moment, all of those aspects. And it didn't ring when I hear other folks speak about them almost in the context of like I didn't look at the world as if you couldn't have a funny haircut and wear a big ass shirt. It was like Paisley. Because I guess I was in New Jersey, people was wearing dancey pants and all kinds of wild stuff anyway. So maybe I was just when I was living also in a suburban context with that mix and I think that may have been that it didn't seem out of place, right?
Well, also y'all had the house music. I mean, I think that's an important component. Yeah, that's an important aspect that, like, depending on where you are, that whole element, that whole very natural part of your community, having those clothing and having this kind of uniqueness wasn't present for everybody. So I think you were in a kind of unique space.
Yeah. And then I guess the thing I think I always and will continue to appreciate about just him as an MC, because again, when we do the like best MCs and lyrics versus we don't include any of these people because we feel like, almost like they I don't know if you want to as we cross over into a little bit of post Super Bowl talk, it's like, well, they had a lot of help. You know what I'm saying? Jalen Hurts he got a super talented team. But like, you know what I'm saying? It's always like you discredit what they did on the verses because they're doing it with somebody else that did something good on the verses. Where it's like, nah, but they was still kicking some, creative style, doing interesting things with where he was almost not rhyming at times. Like sort of like
talking, absolutely.
You know what I'm saying? Yeah, and then it would come back in though, like
Proto.x,
yeah,
like,
you know what I'm saying? Like,
and Prodigy.
Like, the onions in the pants. I had to cry, like all kinds of stuff where you're like, wait, was that a rhyme? Did you just say a sentence? Like, You snuck that in there, brother. Like, yeah, man. It's I think it's significant to one, just give props, and much love to his, friends, family, folks and closest and all that, but also appreciate the artistry, appreciate what they brought to music. And definitely the whole reality of De La Soul is Dead, like in real time while we were watching, like they kind of fought off an external urge to probably turn them into like who knows what the record label was trying to get them to do. Like, oh man, people love this stuff with the flowers, man. You guys should go more. Bigger flowers, more flowers everywhere. Like, it's like, yo, man, we from black dudes from Long Island, man. We ain't hippies.
Right.
Like
No,
we
it was mastery. It was mastery to like put out something that was so genre bending and then literally kill it.
Yeah.
Like 2 years later.
I mean, at a later date, I know some people have mixed feelings about Bloom, Mind State, but I like it. It was definitely one of those first things like, man, they did some things here. Then it was like, actually, I like that song. I like that song. That song too. Man, it's a good record. You know what I'm saying? Towards IMIB being one of the favorites. Having a whole just Maceo jazz song like in the middle of a record. It's good stuff, man.
Yeah,
I love it. Didn't tell nobody it was coming.
Yeah. I mean, I think even when you think about that album in particular, his verses on like Break of Dawn, there were you think about Paz a lot because he started records.
Mm-hmm.
So I think he got a lot of attention, very similar to the whole Q-Tip Fife thing.
Mm-hmm.
But I think the Trugoy was understated. And then actually provided a balance not only in voice but in timbre and kind of tone to Paz. And I think again, the idea that you come out with something, everyone loves it, you kill it, and then 2 years later you come back and do something else that everyone's kind of like, wait, what the hell's going on here? Because then hip hop went another direction and you went away from that. But again, 2, 3, 4 years later, you get all these artists who kind of spin off of y'all doing that kind of thing, being somewhat irreverent, right? Mm-hmm. Because hip hop was really based on being like, hey man, don't you hear me rapping? Or don't you hear me telling this story, nigga? Like, you know what I mean? Like, and hip hop and them kind of be like, hey, we just told a story. Maybe it's true, maybe it's not. Who cares, right? And then you get the far side. I mean, you get the far sides. You get the whole world of Slum Village and related people. That all that has its origin there, right? And so I think it's always powerful to look at it and to have 3 albums, your first 3 albums that are all functionally different. And I would almost argue Stakes is High was like the first kind of like traditional record they put out. Mm-hmm. Like, okay, yeah. You know what I mean? And maybe in response to all the things that they saw. But even like, okay, as much as we think about like the actual song Stakes is High and Trugoy talking about being sick of everything and that, and it's so easy. I just think it was like probably the first one that kind of like normalized. But the power of, again, just being the power of being unassuming. If I could use one way to describe Trugoy, it's like the power of being unassuming. Mm. Which hip hop just didn't have. And sometimes hip hop doesn't have. It's like the power of, man, I'm present and hear me versus like, let me get your attention,
Yeah. Yeah.
And there's a lot to be said for that.
Yeah. So, I'm going to drag on it. I mean, the one thing I would just say as a structural, like, sign of the times kind of issue it did raise. And so, because so I have at least those first 4 records, and at least one other, like I had, the actual, CD and or the file, in my music. And since in the last couple of years, my like music that I have, converted on my computer, MP3, and then I have the CDs in a case, in a fold somewhere. It's been how do I blend these things when I don't have something? So it's been this challenge of like, oh man, I want to listen to that. I can't listen to it on the Spotify or the other thing, but I know I have it on this thing. But then sometimes, Apple's done some things a couple times with the way the iTunes manages your music. So then you go to look for something and it ain't where it's supposed to be. And you're like, well, why isn't it there? And like my pictures are all messed up. So I got like Carl Thomas, his picture is attached to D'Angelo and like Rakim. I don't know where it happened. I don't know, and I don't have time to fix it. So I'll be looking like the right song is playing, but it's Kanye's face above Al Green. That ain't right. That ain't supposed to be whose face is on the little placard. But it a couple of ago, I realized my other CD book was in the old old whip that the guy has, and I was like, oh snap, I forgot this was in here. And I was looking through, I was like, oh man, because my CD copy of 3 Feet High and Rising is in there. I was like, and we got CD players. I was like, yeah, listen, I just told him just take care of it because that's the only copy I got, right? Like that's my hard copy of that, and if I need to redo my music, John, I'm gonna need it. And it like started raising. I was like, this kind of tension of like music you own and you have, even if you don't have the physical media, you have the file somewhere. And sometimes it's stuff that is not, you can't get. You can't listen to some of them. I was listening this morning, as I shared, I was listening to the OK Player, D'Angelo live in LA. And that ain't on no service. And it looks like at least the original one ain't even on YouTube no more. Like, but I have it because when it happened and they had it available as a download, I downloaded it, right? So, and it's a fantastic performance, a great show. Where it's hard to find it if you want to listen to those renditions of those songs. And I think it's an interesting challenge for music. I'm glad that they got their control back. That they were they put the magic number out on the John. So I got the sense that they were going to like slowly be releasing them. You know what I'm saying, as a way to get people to jump in. But I don't know the answer to when the music you want to listen to is not where you want it to be, but you got this tool that does make it easy to listen to some of the music that you want to listen to. But it's disappointing in another frame because it's like, yeah, I want to throw some of these songs, in more often and not have to go to my my personal De La Soul master mix where I just put, like all the records all together so I can listen to them sometime. It's just, it then becomes like you can lose touch with something that you enjoy just because of the apparatus, not because you don't enjoy it anymore. And then, it's like lost to history, not, almost like, evil is banal and so is losing track of your dope music because your record player broke. So now you can't listen to that one. I can't listen to My Part of Town no more because I don't have an electronic version. I only got the record. You know what I mean? I actually have an electronic version, but just saying, for the sake of the argument. So yeah, man, that was my last thought that like it kind of raised still the issue of like access to art and creativity that our modern, vehicles create.
No, I'm with you. Understood.
That, moved to another topic, but Love Spec, Trugoy, De La, all the plugs and all the sorted related, I'm saying, artistry and those that new investment, peace, one love to y'all. And then cheer. So in related news, something else happened, music related, was the Grammys. And I continue my streak of not really knowing when the Grammys is happening until people get mad about whatever happened at the Grammys and start talking about it on whatever social media channel I happen to be on, or whatever wild thing somebody said, like Chris Brown not knowing who Robert Glasper is, and which is hilarious to think about. And I think,
well, I mean, that's an interesting thing. Like, one, if he, I'm sure he didn't really know who Robert Glasper was, which also speaks to like, what else do you listen to outside of the stuff that you create?
Right.
And that would be for any artist, right? Like if you have someone who's Grammy nominated, and again, I don't put the assumption that him as an artist has to constantly be going through and finding himself in dark places listening to music, right? However, like this is Robert Glasper. It ain't like, I didn't ask you about some like really hard to find, artist in Egypt, right? Like he's Grammy nominated. Like he's done music with everybody, right? So it does speak to, even in Black music, some of those like disconnects. And I don't know if it's, I don't know if I want to make it a broader thing or I want to just call it a Chris Brown thing, right? Like maybe Chris Brown just doesn't get out often.
Hey. Yeah, it wasn't like what's my man? Look, I'm trying to look at one. I'm saying it in my head. Diodato, like some obscure jazz artist that I know the samples from, like from the 70s. That like he's got 7 interesting records from 71 to 78, and they did a re-release, and he won a Grammy for the re-release. And like, who's that? It's Rob Glassman. Like he's been, besides his own music, he's sort of been on Kendrick's like records, like a lot of artists. He's performed like writing and creating on these other people's records, so he's not like I would think y'all cross paths. That's in my mind.
Like I said, I don't know if it's Chris Brown being Chris Brown or if it's a broader issue. It's just another one of those Grammy problems,
right? But it's interesting. What was the other thing? I don't remember the other thing people was mad about, but something else happened.
Well, Beyonce. The whole Beyonce thing, and then the whole 50th hip hop thing, which I don't know many people who are more students of hip hop than Questlove. So the idea of getting 50 years of hip hop into like a really short amount of time is just difficult in itself. And I can't, I would think that, he tried to give it the respect it deserves. But again, if you've been listening to hip hop for 50 years, what do you identify as the most important things? Every person will have a different perspective of that. Right? Like everybody will have a different lens on what they should have heard more or less of. Right?
Mm-hmm.
So I just think that part of it, it's kind of like watching the Ken Burns jazz episodes. Like, as much as you can get there, obviously there's stuff left on the cutting room floor, right? Obviously there's people who are not being paid attention to. And I think at some point you have to acknowledge that you can't possibly deal with the breadth and depth of a music. I mean, one, let's be real, there were also no international artists, right? Like, because there's still a context of saying, okay, hey, it's 50 years of hip hop, but like hip hop been outside of America for a while.
Right.
But, so you can't get to everybody. You can't get to every country. There's just not there. I will say one of the interesting things I took from it in the resulting issues was the issues and challenges between Willie D and Scarface. I don't know if you've seen that. They had that, basically Scarface got asked to come and he ain't tell Willie D that he was going. Basically. But they do a podcast together, but he didn't tell him he was going. And Willie D was kind of like, "Oh man, why'd you tell me you was going?" Scarface like, "Oh man, they called me, they ain't called you, man. I ain't got to tell you everything of where I'm going." Got real old black man.
I'm about to say that is the old black man's relationship, like as a like a touchstone where like two people that appear to keep talk to each other regularly, but then sometimes it's like, yeah, I ain't fucking with Jeff today. Like I ain't going over there.
Yeah, like I ain't calling you today. And then they talking and going through it, and that's a whole nother thing that I think, and it's that along with some of the shenanigans of Jay Prince, kind of just engaged to me that the things that we define the South as being really intentional and having strong values, that's coming under question. And those are just representations of it. Again, I'm not speaking of anyone personally from the South that does music or whatever have you, but like this idea of togetherness and even these two people doing podcasts together, like y'all didn't talk about this? like somebody with the I'm going to LA to do the Grammys and then I'm about to go do a song. But it did get to the crux of if the Ghetto Boys have a song called Mind Playing Tricks on Me and Scarface does a verse, is the Ghetto Boys doing it or Scarface doing it? Right. And so again, that's why you can't get everybody's verse in. You pick one person and you pick a person that did the song, but it was not just his song, it was the Ghetto Boys song, right? So even if he didn't even if he didn't get to perform it, should he have been there? I mean, again, but that's a broader logistical challenge of what they were doing versus, to me, now you could argue Scarface should have been like, hey, Willie, yo, man, I'm going out to the joint, man. Just let you know I'm gonna do this thing. But there's also like, did the Grammys say, hey, Willie D, we're performing your song. You're not coming, but we're performing it.
Yeah.
And then or just come out and stand behind it.
Right.
Or whatever have you. But I just think, that that element of it. The only other part I'll say I thought about to your point about these shows, whether it's the Grammys, American Music Awards, Soul Train Awards, BET Awards, Golden Globes, there's a lot of these different shows now that like they played a more central role, I think, in our perception of music and culture at a time when music was not as democratized,
mm-hmm.
and the Academy controlled much more of it.
Mm-hmm.
But I still think there's a perception of the Academy as the standard. And I think if you look at, this is a debate. I mean, the whole thing of like Kendrick winning album of the year versus Pusha T, right? And clearly Pusha T did a whole big like, hey, I should be the winner. And, he didn't win, right? Now, some people to say, hey, Pusha T had he had the best album. Some people, perceive it, Kendrick's album, and dealing with a lot of his, his personal challenges and the art that he created. So it brings to bear, is it what's critically acclaimed? Is it what sells the most? Is it what reflects the time that we're in, right? Like, what do those things do for you, for the Academy to say this is the best project, right? Is it the most listenable? And in that, hence Beyonce lost to Harry Styles. So people were like, hey, how could she lose to Harry Styles? And it's like, well, what are the parameters upon which we say something is the best? So I think, whether Harry Styles wins or Beyonce wins or Kendrick wins, it doesn't really, I don't know. I don't think it, right. And in this day and time, I think people kind of control what they think is the best by what they buy, and then also by what they share and what becomes kind of the group consensus. So I think it's an interesting thing of this like transition where now you have the Grammys that are important because you got the Rock Nation brunch and everybody wears the suit that they never wear anywhere else, right? Like, you go get you a suit that you like. They be having some outfits on, dog. It's just like, yo, okay.
It's the only place you can wear this. Like there's no. It's like, well, I mean, it's not the Met Gala, but it's damn near. Like, where else you gonna wear that?
Right. No, it is, because it's almost like, yeah, like Eddie Rose will be like, oh, you got your Rock Nation outfit on. It's like, well, I mean, yeah, but and at the same time, it's a brunch. Like, I don't know, like it's a brunch in California. Like, okay.
Got to dress up. Gotta be shy.
I guess you got to, yeah. So but I do, just to your point. I think as we get further from this idea of like the Grammys represent, I think hip hop always has a complicated engagement with the Grammys of like what determines what's qualified and who determines what's good, and how do you source that, right? And even as much as hip hop sells records, it still is a question of who determines or who sources what's good.
Yeah, and it's still the tension of like what is one, and this I think is just important, folks, for just to change the the award shows as whomever's running them, then sort of becoming a way of documenting the history of something happening, right? Because like without that, one could, not that you can't go find the music and you can't read about it, but like like I have found, or it's at my mom's house still, but there's like a Leroy Jones book of his writing about jazz that were in like, I guess, like articles that were like in like I don't know if they were in the Village Voice or what other pub newspapers. And it's like, his sort of like, oh, this record came out and this is my review of the record. So when I was reading through it one night when I was in New Jersey, it's like this is the only way I could have context for how somebody at the time when some of those jazz albums came out felt about those albums. Right. So if he didn't write it and other people didn't write it, we've talked about like Stanley Crouch, you know what I'm saying, in his writing on jazz. Like, I would say in our, maybe like Dart Adams, our brother Sunez, you know what I'm saying, being folks who in the contemporary moment have written about hip hop. Others, I guess Coach write about hip hop at all? He did, right? No? Yes, maybe. I don't remember.
He did, yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I'm saying.
Yeah, like, Coach, he did it during his time at The Voice.
At The Voice. Okay. I mean, we've talked about others. Like that stuff becomes a part of how you can get a further understanding about that content and that art, from its time and then later. So then the Grammys, though, is something that sort of rejected hip hop and then but reluctantly decided they had to accept hip hop. And then, it's kind of most of the time botched it. But then like, if you're in charge of the Grammys, you like, we're about to put a Grammy show on. Yeah, we got to do some kind of 50-year hip hop thing because as bad as we are at this, because if we don't, we can't just be like, yeah, we're just going to ignore the hip hop because we stink. You know what I'm saying? Like they kind of feel like they got to do it. It may be bad, it may be good, but the what you end up receiving in that show is someone trying to squeeze all this stuff, right? And and I'll probably rewatch it so I can see, because then how heavy do you weigh the first 15 years of hip hop, right? In terms of like really mainstream, record releasing exposure. How much do you weigh the middle period, you know what I'm saying, from like 97, 98 to the early, 2008, 2009. How much do you do right now in the last 5 years versus even 5 years before? Like it suddenly, this becomes a much more, you decide not to include international stuff, right? You just say, yeah, we're going to bump them out. Maybe you start going to who has, even as cold as it might sound, we love the Ghetto Boys. But Willie D, most of us like Scarface better. Nothing personal, dog. Not, it ain't, it's Scarface and you Willie D.
Right.
It's, what I mean? It ain't a knock. Like, you got some funny, Willie D got some verse of it. Like, Willie, that's hilarious. I love what
I drive big cars, big money. I drive big cars. Everybody know me. It's like I'm a movie star. Late at night. Something ain't right.
You know what I'm saying? Like, if it becomes a thing where people do feel, I could see someone in the artist's direction like, we got to get the South in there. We got to get Scarface, right? Like because if we get Scarface, can't nobody say we didn't get the South, right? If you get Big Boy or Andre 3000 to come out of wherever he's at, chilling, doing what he's doing, or
the recesses, yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Or you get, Luke did sort of rap on his records. Somebody be like, did Luke rap on the records, or did Luke just be there with the record?
I was really thinking, like, honestly, that was a big, and I can't argue what you missed or didn't miss for a lot of reasons because of what we're discussing. But I did think that Luke was a part of like a subgenre of it. One, because of his stuff with the politics and just the framing, like, yeah, we may call it whatever, but it was firmly released under the guise of being hip hop music.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought that omission.
Yeah, I mean, like when you get to Chicago, do you go Common, or do you go like Chief Keef in them? Do you go was it Lil Durk? Lil Durk Chicago?
Yeah, Lil Durk. Yeah,
Lil Durk. Like this suddenly becomes well, obviously right now you don't do Kanye, but right, like this becomes a much more like, how do you do Philly? Do you just go Questlove and Thought? Do you do Meek Mill? Do you do right? Yeah, I'm saying, like, this starts to become like, all right, man, we got to make some choices. We only got 8 minutes. You know what I'm saying? Like, we can't get everything. Like, we just want to get the highlights or get some bits of somebody's rendition. So as a task that someone would try to do, I ain't no DJ, but if you told me like make a 8-minute mix where you just going to scratch in verses or parts of records, even that I could imagine being almost like hundreds of, like 15 minutes, 15 seconds, 30 seconds, 20 seconds of this and that, just to try to get a little bit of everything. I mean, it'd be a fantastic, creative challenge if somebody was, put together a little, like, I'm gonna just get on the tables, but then trying to do that on a stage and people got to wear fancy TV outfits because you got to wear a real wild outfit to be on TV. You can't just come on with like a dope sweatshirt. it's some Tim's. I mean, maybe I would, but that's how I would approach it. I'm like, we gonna go wear what we would have wore when we made our one round away fantastic record. You know what I'm saying? Right. We had more than one. We had a couple of them. We was pretty good. I'm just saying that.
I concur.
Yeah. So, yeah, but congratulations to everybody for still being mad at the Grammys for being the Grammys. You know what I mean? Good job by y'all. Getting in your feelings and stuff. Like, come on, man. It's Grammys. What do you expect? Like, they're gonna mess it up, man. And I don't know. I've never listened to a Harry Styles record, or I'm not sure if I have. And I'll ask Malaya if she's ever played one for me because I don't know. I can't evaluate if Harry Styles should have won anything because I just hear this person's name. I don't recall listening to any of his music.
Yeah, same. So let's talk about the Super Bowl, Jack.
Yeah. So the results, my homeboy, you know what I'm saying? Levon, also known as Patrick, triumphed over the Eagles of Philadelphia, you know what I'm saying? And Jalen Hurts, you know what I mean, in an epic battle, you know what I mean, of football in this. It was great. It was a good game. I thought it actually sort of played out the way I thought it might in terms of, I didn't think that the Chiefs would be down by, I thought they might be down, but I didn't think they'd be down by 2 scores at the half and really with only 1 offensive score. But I wasn't, totally surprised because I mean, even just the Eagles' MO this season has usually been to build leads, and especially in the second quarter. They seem to, like, even if they don't come right out and get on top of you, they've been I think, and I'll leave for stat nerds to let me know the details. Just take my to come in and land, like, edit and then get successful in the second quarter and build a lead going into half. And then, they came out, the Chiefs came out in the second half and said, all right, man, we gonna pull all our, we gonna look at what you're doing, and credit to Andy Reid, who I think the year before in that Bengals game when they should have ran the ball more, didn't. They ran the ball, which is not Philly by design, wants you to run the ball. And they did that, and then Levon was out there wheeling and dealing, and they couldn't stop him from scoring in any of the drives in the second half, and that's how you don't win the Super Bowl. That's how it goes. Eagles fans, I mean, I know a lot of y'all well, and I love you and stuff as friends, but I'm a Giants fan, so I ain't really all that broke up that y'all win Super Bowl. Just, I'm gonna be transparent that, I would have accepted and been happy for you as my friends and colleagues, but, also go Giants, man. Like, it's hard to win Super Bowls. Everybody can't pull it off. You know what I'm saying? So that's my first thoughts. What came to mind for you?
Oh, man. We talked about it, and I remember saying, listen, if Mahomes gets the ball last, the Chiefs win. Mm-hmm. Mahomes had the ball basically last, and the Chiefs won. Like, that's what it is. He's a singular talent. I think that the Philadelphia Eagles, or Andy Reid et al., and I'll get to my point around Andy Reid in a second. And I'll get more about Andy Reid and the Eagles in a second on the coaching tip. But the Eagles got outcoached in the second half. Mm-hmm. Full-fledged.
Yeah.
They, the Chiefs saw what happened, saw they were down, figured it out, and came back. And Jalen Hurts is he's a superstar. And if you didn't know before, you know now that he is a superstar. And those are the kind of games you want. I mean, if you're going to have a Super Bowl, I think we were so used to blowouts in the Super Bowl recently, right? We've been used to, like, people getting dragged. Mm-hmm. And this wasn't a drag. This was two, frankly, evenly matched teams. Well, I don't know. Let me take that back. I don't think they were evenly matched teams. I think they became evenly matched because the Eagles got out coached in the second half.
Mm.
Because I think the Eagles generally field a better team than other people, but the better team doesn't always win.
Yeah.
And that, the better athletes or whatever have you. So, I mean, I think that. I think, we have to give Patrick Mahomes kind of who he is. And again, he's a singular level talent. I do want to note that his father is absolutely hilarious.
Fantastic. I love him.
His pop is fantastic. Man, his pop is black as all get out, man.
Oh, man.
You know what I mean? Say what you want. You look at Patrick Mahomes and you get into this whole colorism thing. He's light skinned and woo woo. Yeah. Well, if it's with his pop, his pop ain't got nothing but heat for your ass. But and I do think, on the level of the endearing hug that they had post game was also really important for people to see. Again, as Black fathers, being present in the lives of their their sons. Mm-hmm. It's an important thing to humanize that, like, did Black fathers raise their children like any other fathers raise their children? And I'll wait before I go into my diatribe about the NFL. But I want to wait and see if you had any other perspectives.
Well, some other things. One, I wanted to give props to Jalen Hurts because, like, the way the game flowed, and as has actually been shown in the season, like sometimes the Eagles go out and get the lead, and then the second half teams might figure a couple things out or move in, and then and then usually they come back with a couple plays and then go, oh, nah, yeah, y'all did get back in it, but we're gonna go ahead and close it out. And to his credit, when it was, when Kansas City took the lead, and it was like, all right, this is the possession. You know what I mean? This is those where you as the quarterback and your team need to come out. Y'all have to come out and get a score. Right, like y'all got to go down the field and get a touchdown, because if you don't, this game's going to be over. Right, and to his credit, he got it done. Like fourth quarter, Super Bowl, lead a drive, puts points on the board, a touchdown. I mean, that's what's supposed to happen, right? If you are a upper level player, the strategy and other thing notwithstanding. I mean, like sometimes people want to make football, I think, more complicated than it needs to be. At the bottom line, when you watch enough football, it's sort of like you get so many possessions in a game, and if you've been down in the game, if you score, you're going to get more opportunities, right? Because like folks, they even say, "Oh, I'm surprised they didn't just start passing it all over the field so they get back into the game." It's like they were going to get 4 to 5 possessions in the second half, and the thing that I think is people will not look at as significant, but it's actually magical, it's really hard to score on all 4 of your possessions. Like you have 4 or 5 and you scored on all of them. You did something to make, like, I think after the one pass he missed, I think Mahomes was 13 for 14. So like if you look at those drives, like it's almost like no passes are incomplete. Last drives. You know what I mean? Because there wasn't like the whiz bang play, it'll get downplayed. They're like, oh well, he only threw for 182 yards, so it wasn't like a magical game. It's like, well, that was 182 yards that were available. Like he got
right. He took what the defense gave him, and they scored.
Yeah, and then for Hurts, I think I think the fact that they actually were so successful throwing the ball, that it kind of like took some bit away from the thing, at least, as a Giants fan, I'll also say, that the Eagles do to you, which is shove it down your throat. and you can't, you're trying to stop them. You're like, God damn it. Oh, where's the hole? Johnson, like, where's your man? Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, you know what I mean? You're like, we got him. Oh, no, we don't. Like, we got this whole stuff. We filled this play up. And then it's like, no, you don't. That guy, he slipped out the back and he went this way. You know what I'm saying? Which is, leads to me, I think is because it also tilts the time variable. So the Chiefs being able to get those stops of the Eagles defense in successive series in like it was the end of the third, in the middle of the fourth, before that last possession, gave them the time to get to tie up and then to get ahead. I stand in the like, I don't care about the penalty, and I don't think you need to do the whole like, can we call or not call? Like, we all got to pick a team on what we want refs to do. Do we want refs to just call games? Or do we want refs to be making contextual decisions about the nature of the moment? And, we want that when it favors us, but we don't want that when it goes a different way, right? You know what I'm saying? Like, well, the refs need to be thinking about how this will look on Jalen Hurts' record if they don't call that. They'll go ahead and call that a catch or call that a pass interference. Or like, you know what I'm saying? It's like, no, the refs just like, calls get made. It's just sort of a bit ridiculous with some folks with and you can be disappointed, right? Because it would have been cool to see if the Eagles got one more possession, could they have pulled it out to get down the field? And I think if it would have played out differently, I mean, they would have had to kick a field goal at that point, so therefore they would have just needed a field goal to tie, right? So could they have got it done? It's possible, maybe not, I don't know, but stuff happens. I mean, it's football. It's all kinds of contact. People, giant, strong humans running fast, hitting each other and stuff. And we care more about the calls late, and we overlook stuff that probably should have been called early. We go like, oh, well, it's early in the game. You know what I'm saying? It's like, well, what if that call got made and they scored a touchdown on that drive? Well, we can't control everything. Justice is like, well, I mean, let the players play, enjoy the game, appreciate, so it was a good Super Bowl, even though I don't like the Eagles. But I wanted, like I said, I can accept good things they do. They run a good ship over there, man. They run a good ship. I gotta respect them. You know what I'm saying? But you know what I'm saying, next year, let's go Giants. You know what I'm saying? It's our division. Or at least we try to split. You know what I'm saying? We try to get in there, get back to the playoffs. 2 years in a row. Go Giants. All right. I made it to Giants conversation. All right. What's NFL?
Okay.
Give it to them.
Now we've got the particulars out the way. Okay. So there's two parts of this that I don't like.
Okay.
The one part of this I don't like is, and the NFL more than any other place comes down to this. I mean, hockey probably comes down to it, but we just give hockey away. We won't even say shit no more about hockey. Like, we just like, fuck it. Maybe there ain't nobody black can coach. Fuck it. All right. The Eagles get out coached in the second half. The OC, the defensive coordinator, everybody gets out coached. Somehow they both get head coaching jobs. You got it now. You had a great season, and I'm not assuming that because obviously you had chosen to get these guys their jobs before the Super Bowl. So I get that. So it's not like, the coaches were watching, the owners were watching. Oh man, messed up today. He doesn't get the job. So I get that. Because like you said, the Eagles actually run a really good organization. It's a really good ship. They both get head coaching jobs. We shall see, the tree and how it goes, right? And they got some folks filling in, and it'll be what it is. But they did get out coached. Then you have Eric Bieniemy. The curious case of Eric Bieniemy, the OC for the Chiefs, who they have 2 Super Bowls in the last 4 years.
Mm-hmm. 2 Super Bowls, and they went to a third one. 3 Super Bowl appearances and 5 consecutive AFC Championship games.
Exactly.
All of them hosted at home.
Exactly. By any other means, if you didn't have Tom Brady in the world and you didn't use the framework of his existence, it's a dynasty. Mm-hmm. The OC for this team can't seem to get a head coaching job, even though they've been in 3 of the last 5 and been in 5 AFC Championship games. When people talk about why not, one of the reasons they bring up is that Eric Bieniemy does not call all the plays. And for some reason, Andy Reid lets it be known that he calls some plays. So then people use that as a reason, along with he doesn't interview well, so that he doesn't get a head coaching position in the National Football League. Jeff Saturday, a guy who had no coaching experience, coached the Colts. He was just a guard in the league. Eric Bieniemy, a good player from a pedigree. He went to Colorado and has been here. For some reason, has to go leave. And then of all places, become the OC for no one else but the goddamn Commanders. Which has to probably be, at least in football and basketball, along maybe with Brooklyn Nets now, one of the worst places you can go. And go to be an OC with Ron Rivera, who was a great coach. But you still got to be an OC. Andy Reid, I don't know, purposely, not purposely, he made it so this guy can never be a goddamn head coach. And so for the Eagles, OC and DC to go get jobs, everybody else is getting a head coaching job. For Eric Bieniemy to not, as highly regarded as he is by all the amazing players who have played under him, is a testament to the weird, strange world that is the NFL. So I just wanted to get that out because, like,
it don't make no sense. I was super disappointed. Like that, I was hoping he would like go be a college head coach. It's just like, man, screw all this NFL stuff. I'm gonna go do a college thing. And like, because I mean, the problem with Washington, okay, there's so many layers of problems. All right, first problem is the idea that just because he doesn't call the plays, meaning somehow the history of the head coach calling the plays and teams being good, it's not a great history. It's usually only on teams where you got like a genre defining quarterback that works out well.
Right.
Most of the time. Like, I mean, it's been a solid performance. Like, you know, when Alex Smith was the Chiefs quarterback, they were a competent, competitive NFL team, but Alex Smith's, you know, limitations as, you know, having, you know, throwing the ball places, some, you know, throwing in the challenge and other things, that was like limited the outcome, right? So the calling of the plays as this definer of this should make you a head. I just think it's a ridiculous from media people that they raise that as this reason why maybe he's not the one that's making decisions. The coaches, it's a whole system. Like if you're, you know, like there's a whole off season, there's like building and planning there's a whole thing with coaching a football team that's a months long process. It involves all this other time outside of who calls plays during the game to make the team like good. Like there's technique stuff, there's training stuff, there's the relationships with the staff. You know, Brian Daboll, coach of the Giants this year, people were like, oh, he's not going to call the plays? No, because he wants to run the team. He needs to keep an eye on everything, not just what's the next play. There's enough times in the last even 20 years of football where you go, oh, they're calling the play, and you go like, you know what? That coach might be missing some stuff with this game because he's so worried about calling these plays he want to call. Like I think it's a strange. I'm frustrated with the NFL media for their leaning in as some sort of evidentiary marker about him and his capacity to like design a program and run a whole team. I just think it's a ridiculous point to go like, but he doesn't call the plays, so maybe it's just Andy. And it's like, no, they plan stuff. They review things. It's a damn brain trust, right? Like the way these things run well. Like you look at the Colts teams, like yes, you had Peyton Manning, supercomputer, you know, on the field, quarterback. The culture of the team, the structure, you know, was set up by Tony Dungy. Who the coaches are, or the way the defense played, and all these other, they did the wide nine with the blitzing, and they did the other thing with Bob Sanders when they got their run. Jim Caldwell's proven to be a coach, and I'm glad that he's back on the end as an offensive coordinator or offensive staff leader in Carolina, as someone that helps quarterbacks get better and then runs good offense. And even you know, that his worst trait as a leader of a team was consistently going 9-7 with Matt Stafford's inability to actually to take a team to the next level. But I'll say that for later. It's very ridiculous, and I'm sad he's going to Washington. And one, because I don't like the Cobra. Like, you know what I'm saying, they should wear the Cobra. That's how they look to me. Commanders. But one, I don't really think I don't think Ron Rivera is long for this world as the head coach of that team. I don't see where that's going. If they were not in this thing where they're looking to change ownership, he probably would have been fired. Right. Because, basically due to the structure of what's happening there, if the team's about to be sold, you can't be firing people and making new contracts and changing stuff on the books. Right. So, and then it's like, well, now, Eric, I definitely, I can't root for you, bro. You with them. You with them. Like, I love, as a Giants fan, I love beating them. We beat them every year. Most of the time. Like, it's the other two teams that we've been off and on because of our, depleted talent level. You know what I'm saying? But y'all, we can beat y'all. You know what I'm saying? We wait for you to get on the calendar. It's and it's just the idea that a man that has accomplished as much as an offensive coordinator, like if anyone that decides like, now I'm going to see if Eric Bieniemy really knows what he's doing because he goes and coaches Ron Rivera's team offense. Are you serious? It's ridiculous. Like it's just, I think the ship is
right with Carson Wentz.
Right. Like Sam Howell, whoever else they
right. Like it's a testament to like the NFL just still has, and it cuts all the ways. Obviously, it cuts across race, but it cuts. I mean, we often talk about my formerly beloved Raiders, and that's just the strangest place in the world. Like, fear and loathing in Las Vegas. Like, so it like the NFL more than like a lot of other places, like the personalities of the owners and the personalities that come out just cut in really, really like wild ways, man. So I just think it was important for us it was while we're talking about the Super Bowl, but like everybody else loses and moves on to run teams. And I'm not knocking, again, I don't knock. You got outcoached because you got outcoached. That's fine. That shouldn't mean you can't go run your own team. But like you participated in getting a Super Bowl, you should be able to go run your own team too.
Yeah. I mean, it's the model that had been planted back to Adam Gase getting 2 jobs. Adam Gase rejuvenated Peyton Manning when he got to Denver. Word, Adam Gase rejuvenated Peyton Manning being Peyton Manning and suddenly having was it Demaryius Thomas, what's his name that came from the Steelers, like having basically a loaded ass offense rejuvenated Peyton Manning. No, Adam Gase, are you crazy? What's my man Hackett, who I've showed he could not coach his way out of a wet paper bag as a head coach last year. You know what I'm saying? You try to tell me Eric Bieniemy would not have done a better job in Denver last year? Like, really? That dude was clearly way out of his league as a head coach. He might be a great guy. People say nice things about him, but he wasn't ready. It just doesn't make any sense. And it's as I would say in the like classic African American experience, since we just be like, it's fine, man. Y'all not gonna do the right thing. I'm just gonna move on to do something else because I can't sit and dwell on this and like have my blood pressure going up. Like, I'm gonna go over here, I'm gonna go hang out with my kids, or I'm gonna go have a nice glass of whiskey or something, and somebody gonna make me some sort of smoked meats or something like that, and I'm gonna think about other things, because it's like if I sit over here and look at you just not willing to do the right thing, it just is, you just got to move on. Like, well, they had a chance to do the right thing, and again they refused. So I'm just gonna go over here and think about something else. I just would have liked for him. I just would have thought, and I think, and then the timing though, I guess is bad because in terms of college roles, this ain't the time cycle to take a college role, right? Like the time cycle for college roles is usually at the end of the college season, before recruitment and stuff happens.
Recruiting, yeah.
So like he would either have to sit out a year and then come back in. I would have rather him just say, you know what, I'm gonna go be special assistant. Shoot, I wish the Giants would have brought him in as a special assistant or something. Just let him hang out with us for a year and then let him go, find his own thing. But the Giants, they're getting better, man. I mean, I got hopes for the new GM and Dayball that they will make more creative decisions and not, because on the field, the Giants leadership has not made the best decisions. But I'll say that for a personal justice rant about the Giants in the last 20 years. But we have won 2 Super Bowls, unlike in the last 24 in my lifetime. So some teams win 4 Super Bowls, other teams go to 4 Super Bowls and don't win 4 of them. You know what I'm saying? Them's the breaks. All right, that was the Eagles jab. I did it. That's right.
It was. That was vicious, man.
Yeah, I did it right to the ribs. And the guy I said some mean things on the internet a couple weeks ago. Guy said I was being petty. You know what I'm saying? I was. I won't do it again. I said I would. That was the second time, but there was different context. So just if I don't know if he listened to this podcast, but just in case he ever does, what I'm talking about. But I just had to do it because what I'm saying, it's 4 rings. You know what I'm saying? We out here. Go Giants.
Well, hold on, man. Don't start with that shit, man. Because then you get into Pittsburgh territory with that ring shit, which starts to have no context on how you're actually functioning today. It starts to be the version of back in my day,
right?
when Jazz was like this. It was 1955, man. So right. I get you. But you get into that.
Gotta get into that Cowboys context where you ain't won nothing since 1995. And 49ers fans, I know y'all, and just saying, y'all are only 1 year different from the Cowboys. They talking big trash.
To me, the Cowboys, the 49ers, the Steelers, and kind of y'all are like those teams that's kind of like hey man, we've been good. And it's like, yeah.
We on the upswing, baby. 9-7-1. We coming back.
Don't get me wrong. Don't get me wrong. Tom Brady kind of upgraded the whole weird thing where like he's got 7 in his goddamn self. You could argue how many of them,
that'll never happen again. For just
no.
But
but shit. I mean, now what's name's got 2. Yeah. And I wouldn't bet that he doesn't get another 1 or 2.
I'll say right now, until one of the other AFC teams does something different, I'd say he's back in the championship game for sure next season. It's one of those. I would just say this just goes back to the football aspect of it. Like people, I hope that this puts to bed the whole is this person now? No, none of those people are number one. He's number one, and then it's like the next group of people. But he's number one. It's like it's him.
Yeah, it's him and everybody else. Him.
He's his own.
The other gunslingers hurts. Yeah, but it's him. It's him and then everyone else. So shout out to them and his pop, who's probably still smoking cigars, talking shit about the fact that they won.
Love it. I love to see it. So, all right. I think that's anything else.
Nah, not for good. I think we're good for the good of the order.
All right. So with that, I'll say peace.
Peace.
Thank you for listening to Good Brothers. Thank you to my good brother, Majestic. Good Brothers is a part of the Ask Your Old Head podcast, and you can support the podcast by sharing, by listening, by rating and subscribing, and again, by sharing. That's the only way we connect with new people. Further, the podcast is produced by me, recorded by me, edited by me, and you can support me in continuing this creative work via my Patreon, where you can subscribe monthly and contribute a little bit to keep my costs down and keep this thing here going and growing. You can also support the podcast by purchasing merch. I have started working on a new shop, so you can still search on Etsy, and that's cool. Buy you a sweatshirt or mug, but if you go to asheroldhead.com and click on the products, I think is what I have it named as, you can order a sweatshirt, and I'm testing it out. It's new, so if you've been on the fence about purchasing a sweatshirt, maybe now this is your year. I don't know, so feel free, check it out, give it a swing, let me know how it goes, and more to come. So thank you for your support, and be well. Peace.